even now at the pro level and all throughout the junior and AAA and minor league, minors, that language is still pervasive, and that language, beyond so many other things, really sets the tone of what is okay and what isn't okay. And if homophobic language is allowed, it just gives permission to so many other things, and just keeps the sport from moving forward. So my name is Peter Lovins. My pronouns are he, him, and his. In the world of hockey, I was recently promoted to be Associate General Counsel for the Columbus Blue Jackets, proudly represented on my wall. I have been a lawyer with the club since 2012, so just over 9 years.
How did Peter get into hockey?
So I guess an interesting story, so I grew up in Alaska, and it's, one of those states in the United States where hockey was around, right? My elementary school had an ice rink where you could skate for recess. But even with that, it was around, but I didn't grow up playing. I was that casual fan. One of the barriers of hockey is how expensive it is. So I played some of the cheaper sports, soccer and basketball. But growing up, I was just a passionate sports fan for football, hockey, whatever it was, basketball. Then growing up through academics, I ended up at law school, and trying to marry my passion for sports, passion for the law, and being openly gay, and putting all those things together. And while I was at law school at Ohio State, I was fortunate to get connected with the Blue Jackets general counsel, get to know him through my network, and then just became incredibly fortunate that I was able to turn a career into it. And from that, the love of the sport has really grown since I've been with the club for about a decade.
That's really cool. And what is it that you love about the sport?
As I got into it more, and growing up as a sports fan, I have a level of appreciation for the sport and what it takes to play it. And this is from a perspective of a fan. When I see a football game or basketball or softball, whatever it is, I can almost visualize having the human capacity to do those skills. And then I watch hockey and I'm like, I have no idea how that happened. From skating, just the basis of skating, stick handling while getting checked, to me, it truly just amazes me as a fan. And that really has grown more and more as you watch it, and from highlight reel plays to everything. I'm like, wow, this is just incredible. So that's, to me as a fan, that's what I love the most, is just the skills involved on display for us to enjoy.
So true. Based off your intersection of identities and who you are, how could hockey be better for you as an individual? And how do you think it could be better for the queer community?
Well, that's a great question. And I think there's just so much work we still have to do. I attended an event hosted by the San Francisco 49ers in the NFL this past week. They hosted a panel on sports in the LGBTQ plus community, and they had Curtis Gabriel on there, one of the most visible vocal allies for us playing in the league right now. And he even noted he feels like hockey culture is the worst of all the sports. And it's really tough to hear that. But, he shares examples of just homophobic language in locker rooms, even now at the pro level and all throughout the junior and AAA and minor league, minors, that language is still pervasive. And that language, beyond so many other things, really sets the tone of what is okay and what isn't okay. And if homophobic language is allowed, it just gives permission to so many other things, and just keeps the sport from moving forward. It keeps people from becoming fans. And if you're not going to be a fan of the sport, you may not play the sport. And if you're not a fan, you may not work in the sport. As one of the few openly gay individuals working at the NHL level, sometimes it's tough being, the only one walking around your building, and how much weight comes with that, and how much sensitivity and everything that comes with it. I think truly there are people that want to help, but we're still right in the almost like the preseason of it, right? We have a few slogans, we have some rainbow stuff, but the barriers really for the sport come when kids are just starting to play the game, and we need to start setting the message right for those kids, those youth, for fans to know what is okay and what's not okay. That to me would both make it better for me as an individual, just seeing that and feeling more comfortable myself. And I think it would also help move the sport forward.
It's so very true. And I think Curtis is spot on there with the language. I mean, that caused me most of my hardship within the culture. Knowing where it's at and hearing people like Curtis talk about where it's at, what keeps you in the sport?
It's another great question. I mean, on one hand, I do consider myself very fortunate. Getting to work for an NHL club is absolutely incredible. I mean, it's a dream, and so many other people would love to be in my seat, right? And even with some of those challenges I mentioned, I'm still hopeful. You have to remain hopeful, but I truly am hopeful for continued progress. Like I said, I feel like we're in the preseason, but hopefully we can keep moving it forward. I also think there's an importance in having a seat at the table and trying to change things from within, right? While there may be challenges for me, whatever they are, both from outside perceptions or, little microaggressions, whatever those things are, I think it's important for me to stick through that and be there. One of my favorite people in the world of queer sports is Chris Mosier. And he says something where he says, be who you needed when you were younger. And that resonates tremendously with me. Growing up in just a conservative family, Alaska, you don't have many role models to look up to in that space. And so for me, part of trying to be visible is so people can see me, so that maybe they can see themselves working for a team, whether it's as a lawyer or in any other capacity with a club. I just feel like I have to stick it out for them, truthfully.
You mentioned being hopeful. What gives you hope for queer people in the sport?
We do see these seeds of progress. We really do. I think there are a ton of people that care, and there are a ton of allies in the sport. I think so many of them are just waiting or need a little guidance, may not know where to start, how to help, and kind of need encouragement. But I truly know that there's a ton of them, because many of them talk to me privately and they're there. And I think we're just almost waiting for a critical mass or whatever it may be, where we can all be in this together and work together for solutions. I also do think, and this is a bit of a cop-out, and I don't think we want to solely rely on this, but the younger and younger generations are coming up with so much more queer representation throughout everything, in media, in sports, not as much, but in many other facets of their life, where their friend could be queer and it's not an issue. And they may have a friend with queer parents. And I think that normalization of it for us, while it's going to take a while, there's this energy that comes from our youth where they're almost pushing up and forcing the issue of like, this is who we are, and you need to be okay with it, and we're not going to really ask your permission. And I think there's an energy that comes from those youth, and so they both give me hope, and I hope to reciprocate it, I guess.
Definitely. And I think, queer youth being unapologetically themselves, it makes me hopeful. And so do people like you, because you're on the front lines. And the more people we have on the front lines, the more people we have sitting in those meetings on a daily basis, the more in the face of the culture we are, and it has to change. That representation forces change. So I want to thank you for that. It means a lot. Peter, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I think thank you for putting this together. I think it's incredibly important and valuable to share the voices of LGBTQ plus people in the sports, from fans and their experiences. What are they like, and what keeps them coming back to games, to those working in it, to players, to youth at all levels. I think it's an incredible initiative that you're doing. So thank you for that. And thank you for your voice in these spaces and continuing to kind of push us all forward. I appreciate that.